All right, y'all, welcome to the show. Hopefully my brain is working this morning, but I can't make any promises. We shall see. We got a lot of stuff to get to, so in just a second, I'm going to give you some more gruesome new details of Israel's war crimes. We're learning more about what went on at Shifa Hospital. We're learning more about crimes committed against particular families. We have some pictures coming out of there. It's ugly. I mean, you guys know every time we talk about this, we're like a broken record, but what are you going to do? You know, you have to show what's going on. After that, we'll get to a U.S. politician very casually talks about nuking Gaza and then has to come out and try his best to do damage control, which he fails miserably at because there's only so much you could say after you basically are like, yeah, nuking, awesome. Then later on, we'll have some fun. Alex Jones versus Rabbi Shmuley, a real battle of the midwits there. We'll get to Steven Crowder's legal battle with his former right-hand man, Not Gay Jared. If you've never heard of Not Gay Jared, it must sound ridiculous to hear me say the words Not Gay Jared. By the way, like, immediate giveaway that everybody's like, oh, yeah, he's probably gay. Right? If you call yourself Not Gay Jared, it's like, oh, he loves dick. That's obvious. Then we'll get to Jon Stewart versus MAGA. They were pissed at him for calling out Trump's fraud. The whole Trans Day of Visibility scandal. I can't wait to talk about that. And then later on, Lizzo rage quits music, and it has to do with politics. So you'll see. Really funny. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Everybody, please me a big favor. Subscribe to the channel. It helps out massively. All right, let's jump in. This is a big deal. You guys know we had the case at the International Court of Justice not that long ago, which basically found it is plausible that Israel may be committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, and therefore here are a list of conditions that they have to abide by. And basically in response to that, Israel has given the court the middle finger and continued with what they were doing beforehand. If anything, in some instances, they've actually ramped up the crimes. Well, now the court is stepping in again. So Kenneth Roth, who's the former head of Human Rights Watch, says, a major new order. The International Court of Justice orders Israel to allow unimpeded access of food aid into Gaza, where significant sections of the population are facing imminent starvation, rebuking Israel's claim it is not blocking aid deliveries. So one of the things they did is they kept blocking the aid, but then they turn around and just lie about it. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're allowing in the aid. What do you mean? Now, meanwhile, there's been detailed reports. I mean, this is going back months ago now, but we covered one article that explained how at least 70% of the aid was being blocked. You know, trucks would try to go in. There was a rule that the IDF would empty everything off a single truck. If they found one thing that they didn't like on that truck, then they would turn the entire truck around. So even if theoretically you had a truck that was 95% food, but 5% of it was tents because people lost their homes, they have nowhere to sleep. So one of the things they need are tents in order to have some shelter, right? They would say, oh no, the pipes that are used to build the tent could theoretically be used as a weapon, so we're going to turn the whole thing around. This is what's been going on. It is death by bureaucracy on purpose. Well, now the ICJ is stepping in again, and they're saying, nah, man, we're serious. You guys got to allow the aid in. So, look, it's horrific what's happening. I do think one of the consequences of Israel continuing to snub the UN and the International Court of Justice is that this will definitely be used in the actual genocide proceedings against Israel. So, in other words, you directly and repeatedly defy the orders of the International Court of Justice. It makes it so much more likely that they're going to say, actually, yeah, you're guilty of the crime of genocide. So this, again, is a big deal, but I wouldn't hold my breath for Israel to change course because every step of the way so far, no matter who is calling out their violations of international law, they just continue with what they're doing. So now we also have this. This is infuriating, man. Remember when Biden sanctioned some Israeli settlers and it was treated as evidence that Biden was pressuring Israel? Well, he just walked it back and gave the settlers access to their bank accounts again. Biden's fecklessness on Israel knows no end. That's from Trita Parsi. Now, that's incredible. So let's be clear. Sanctioning the extremist illegal settlers was just window dressing in the first place. right? You find the craziest psychos you can who are the most extreme, the most right-wing, the most flagrant in their violations of international law. You slap some sanctions on some of them, and the impression that gives people is, oh my God, you're cracking down on the extremists in Israel. Well, guys, just so everybody understands, nominally, theoretically, these illegal settlers were even going against the wishes of the Israeli government, where even the Israeli government is like, hey man, you guys are going a little too far with it, reel it in a little bit, what you're doing is not allowed, right? So it's just a little slap on the wrist for people who everybody agrees are doing the wrong thing. But now you even roll back sanctions on them? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, man. That's dark. So you can't even follow through on your window dressing PR bullshit virtue signaling? Even that you feel like is too harsh? Again, you guys know the history of this because we've brought it up a million times, but Ronald Reagan called the Israeli prime minister when they were bombing Lebanon, and he says, it looks like you guys are doing a Holocaust. Wrap it up. Within 20 minutes, Israel had to cut it out. George H.W. Bush, nobody's lefty, conditioned $10 billion on loan guarantees to Israel only if they freeze the expansion of illegal settlements. They froze the expansion of illegal settlements. So you have two of, like, honestly, the worst Republican presidents who were able to put some legitimate pressure on Israel in certain contexts and get a better outcome. And now you have a Democratic president in Joe Biden who, even when he does some virtue signaling PR nonsense about the most extreme assholes in Israel, even that he can't follow through on. I mean, it's just disgusting. All right, so now we have this. This is another huge, huge deal. So there's an article in Haaretz. Israel created kill zones in Gaza. Anyone who crosses into them is shot. The Israeli army says 9,000 terrorists have been killed since the Gaza war began. Defense officials and soldiers, however, tell Haaretz that these are often civilians whose only crime was to cross an invisible line drawn by the IDF. So, look, this is verification, but this is something that we sort of knew all along, right? It's why North Gaza, at this point, is pretty much totally uninhabitable, pretty much wiped off the map. We know that was a decision by the IDF. Let's just level all of North Gaza. You guys have seen the pictures. You guys have seen the videos coming out of there. How can you have, for multiple blocks, you have nothing but rubble in sight? Is it that every single building was a Hamas stronghold? Well, of course not. There's 2.3 million people in Gaza, or at least there were, and there's only about 30,000 Hamas fighters. So they were just leveling everything in sight. Well, now we have verification. Again, let me repeat this. Civilians whose only crime was to cross an invisible line drawn by the IDF. So entire kill zones. All right. Then we got this. The Washington Post reports that the Biden administration in recent days quietly authorized the transfer of billions of dollars in bombs and fighter jets to Israel. For all the huffing and puffing, and remember, the United States abstained recently when it came to a ceasefire resolution in the Security Council that allowed it to pass. It was actually a decent ceasefire resolution because it was drafted by a lot of the states that actually give a shit about this. So Netanyahu was mad and he was huffing and puffing, and immediately the U.S. came out and tried to, tamp down the tensions and say, this doesn't really change anything and it's non-binding. What are you talking about? The Security Council is not non-binding. It is binding. The General Assembly, in theory, is non-binding, even though it probably shouldn't be, but it is. The Security Council is binding. So you already got the sense after they did that immediately afterwards, they were like, no, this is just for PR purposes too. And now you know. Because now, quietly, the Biden administration is like, send them more money and weapons. Go ahead. Go ahead. Look at this. The same day, the Biden administration issues a statement on Arab American Heritage Month. It announces a new weapon shipment to Israel, including 2,000-pound bombs. Now remember, what was it? It was either the U.S. in Iraq or Afghanistan. This was a fact that was written in an article a while ago that a bunch of people took note of, and I'm happy they did, that the U.S. in these densely populated areas would never use a bomb more than 500 pounds, because at that point it's like, their calculation is that it's super indiscriminate and you're going to get civilian casualties, and we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And here you have Israel dropping 2,000-pound bombs on densely populated urban environments. So again, you tell me, does it look like they're trying to avoid civilian casualties? But this is some nerve, isn't it? A proclamation on Arab American Heritage Month 2024. This month, we honor the rich heritage, history, and hopes of the more than 3.5 million Arab Americans across our country who have helped write the American story and move our nation ever. Diversity is our strength. We're in favor of good things. We like equality and justice. We like having a multicultural rainbow in this country, and we're on your side, except that, oh, wait, we're signing off on more bombs and warplanes for Israel as the Arab American and Muslim American communities are screaming from the top of their lungs repeatedly, stop massacring Gaza. Stop slaughtering Palestinians. These are innocent people. These are women. These are children. The numbers are astonishing. So as you do your little virtue signal about, we see you and we respect you and we appreciate you, it's also like, yeah, we're going to send more bombs to the people who are, in some very direct instances, killing family members. We've seen the horror stories. The horror stories of people. I lost 12 family members in Gaza. Again, disgusting. All right, so look, I have to say up front before I give you guys these numbers, this is the most recent update I was able to find from Euromed Monitor, the human rights group. And this is all the way back from March 14th. Okay, it's April 1st now. So very clearly, the ability of human rights organizations to crunch the numbers and get reliable data to people, it's fallen off a cliff. Why? Because Israel has bombed over 20 hospitals. So all of the infrastructure that was in place to track the casualties of this, how many of those people are dead? How many of those people are displaced? They're like, I don't even know how we even were able to get an update on March 14th. Never mind how we can get an update today. But the last slate of numbers that came out from Euromed Monitor, the human rights group, is that there's over 40,000 Palestinians killed. 14,861 of them are children. 9,273 of them are women. Of the 40,000 dead, 36,330 are civilians. 74,400 people are injured. How you treat those people with a collapsed medical system, I have no idea. You have 134 journalists killed, which means it's the most deadly conflict for journalists of all time. Of all time. 2 million displaced out of 2.3 million Palestinians. 2 million out of 2.3 million are now homeless. They have nowhere to go. There were 112,000 homes that are completely destroyed, including 256,100 that are partially destroyed. 175 press headquarters have been damaged. 438 schools have been damaged. 2,131 industrial facilities like factories and places of work, they've been damaged. 634 mosques have been damaged. 3 churches damaged. 771 healthcare professionals have at least been injured, including 331 killed. Then we have 285 healthcare facilities that have been damaged. 28 of the hospitals have been bombed, 65 clinics, 192 ambulances, 200 heritage sites. I mean, 3,320 Palestinians who are hostages, political prisoners. So, and again, these are old numbers. The real number, I would imagine at this point, is way higher. I think is way higher, especially with all the starvation. I mean, we've covered the stories. You know, we're now at the point where older folks and babies and toddlers, like these are the people in a hunger situation, in a famine and starvation situation, they tend to die first. And that's what we've already seen. And I got more on that for you in a little bit. All right. Shocking documentation obtained by Al Jazeera English shows Israeli soldiers murdering civilians attempting to return to their homes in the north and burning their corpses afterwards to hide the war crime. So I'm going to play some of this for you. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to warn you up front. I'm sure this is very gruesome. So let's watch.
لكنها لم تمنعهم من إطلاق النار عليه. لكن المشهد لم يكتمل بعد. تصل إلى المكان جرافة مدولبة. هنا تظهر جثة الرجل الأول الذي اختفت آثاره بعد أن وصل إلى الجنود سابقة. تدفع الجرافة العملاقة.
For everybody just listening podcast style, you could see that they're picking up dead bodies that are on the beach to just dispose of them. And as Ryan Grimm points out, this is more evidence that the Ministry of Health numbers are an undercount, because the IDF is burying the bodies, and highly doubt they're keeping detailed records of the number of people they've genocided, right?
وتدفنهما بالرمل والقمامة المنتشرة في المكان، ليكتمل المشهد بقتل من يحاول العودة إلى منزله، بل وبإخفاء الجريمة وآثارها. يكتمل مشهد جريمة جديدة للجنود الإسرائيليين في غزة، وترصدها كاميرا من بعيد حصلت على صورها الجزيرة.
Yeah. All right. You guys get the gist of it. Terrible. Euromed Monitor's field team documented the Israeli army's field execution of 13 children near Shifa Hospital in Gaza. The majority of them were with their families following the Israeli military's instructions to evacuate their areas when they were shot dead. So this is two of them right here. Ali Salhua and Saeed Sheikha. Two of the 13 Palestinian children executed by the Israeli army near Shifa Hospital. By the way, I got more on Shifa Hospital for you in a little bit. You're going to see what it looks like now. And it ain't pretty. Like, the thing that I struggle to find a way to get across to people is that when we talk about the 36,000 civilians who've been killed, the nearly 15,000 children, like, these are all human beings. These are all people with a detailed backstory and life and loved ones and mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and hopes and dreams. These are all precious human beings. And they're being treated as less than ants with what Israel's doing. And I'm going to reiterate a very basic point here, but at this point, I literally cannot wrap my mind around how anybody can look at this and be naive enough to think it is sincerely a highfalutin hunt for Hamas. That's all we're trying to do here. At this point, to believe that, you're either incredibly ignorant of the facts on the ground, or you're stupid, or you're just lying and you know you're wrong, but this is what you proclaim. Okay. The IDF butchered the entire Rajab family in West Gaza. One elderly woman survived but is stuck there because Israeli troops are besieging the area. Another savage war crime you won't hear a single word about in mainstream media. This is from Mohammed Shahada, who is the chief of communications for Euromed Monitor, the human rights group. You can see the picture here. This is absolutely gut-wrenching. By the way, highly recommend you follow both Euromed Monitor, the human rights group, and Mohammed Shahada specifically, because he gives just endless updates on what's happening. Israel designated undisclosed parts of Gaza as extermination areas where IDF soldiers shoot freely at anything that breathes. This is what we just talked about from Haaretz. An Israeli military bulldozer scooping the bodies of killed Gazans to the tune of a woman singing. What's a noise and chaos? Here, a garbage truck is coming and taking the dirty trash. Boom, boom. Why is the can of dirty trash he's lifting so loud? The garbage is being trashed. So more examples like we see on TikTok all the time with the IDF. Proudly boasting about their war crimes, having fun, kicking around a beach ball, posting videos of how many times have we seen IDF soldiers take lingerie from the dressers of women in Gaza? How many times have we seen that? They're proud of it. They're proud of what they're doing here. So anyway, like I said, definitely go check out his entire feed. It's just nonstop updates about what's actually happening on the ground. This is one more I wanted to show you from him. Making the blooms a desert. Israel wiped out nearly half of all trees and green spaces in Gaza. An ecocide that'll skyrocket the starvation, extinction of wildlife, and pollution of air and water. A calculated strategy of creating conditions that collapse the population, aka genocide. So stop and think about that. They wiped out nearly half of all trees and green spaces in Gaza. This is purposeful. This is purposeful. They know what they're doing. They're doing it on purpose. Okay. This was Sky News reporting on March 30th that an Israeli airstrike hit a car carrying UN observers outside a town in southern Lebanon. I love how casual they are with their obliteration of UN buildings, UN workers, etc. So this is what I was talking about earlier, that the starvation has gotten to old folks and young folks. But there's also this. Thousands of people with chronic and serious diseases, including kidney failure patients, face a slow death amid Israel's genocide of Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip, ongoing since October 7, 2023. So 20 kidney failure patients died. 60 others will probably follow them due to lack of medical treatment. So, again, the first you see go, the elderly, the very young, and also people who tend to have pre-existing conditions or need constant medical care. These are the ones who are going to die first, and we're already in the process of them dying because of the total siege, the lack of food. Tens of thousands of Israelis are demonstrating in Tel Aviv tonight, calling on Netanyahu to do more to release the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. The biggest demonstration since October 7th. So here, I'll show you what this looks like here. That sure is a lot of people. That sure is a lot of people. And what you've seen consistently is that certainly the priorities of the family members of the hostages, their number one priority is getting the hostages back. Among many of the Israeli population, that's their main priority, getting the hostages back. Among the right-wing government, that is not their main priority, and many of them have actually come out and said, and we covered it with the specific quotes, many of them have come out and said, that's not our main concern. Our main concern is, quote, wiping out Hamas, which is what they say, but then again, what their actions show is it goes beyond that. It goes into ethnic cleansing, genocide, resettling Gaza. There's now been conferences about resettling Gaza, real estate companies talking about it, members of the government openly talking about it. So I'm not going to play the video here, but in this video, you have a protester. And here's Karine Jean-Pierre in New York walking around. There's some cops there. And the protester says, look me in the fucking eyes and tell me you don't care about dead children. Basically calls her out directly for the genocide of Gaza. This is something that we're seeing everywhere now. Anybody who's, anybody who's somewhat responsible for this or going along with it or steering the ship, anybody with any power, pro-Palestine protesters are not letting them off the hook. This is what we saw with the thing the other night. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, they had that big fundraiser at Radio City Music Hall, and there were protests outside the building. There were protests inside the building. They can't go anywhere, and that's good. They need to know that this is not something that people are just going to take sitting back and watching, that there's a real grassroots pressure campaign to change what they're doing. And by the way, people are still doing what I think is the bravest protest of all, which is all of these massive ships that are sending weapons to Israel. A lot of protesters have tried to block those ships from leaving and going to Israel to keep them from getting weapons that everybody knows they're going to use to massacre innocent civilians. That's the bravest and most correct form of protest I could think of. Okay, so we mentioned Shifa Hospital. Here we go. Look, images have started to emerge from Al-Shifa, and to say they are horrifying is an understatement. Here's some of the images. Look at all this. By the way, all these like holes, that's gunfire. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And then as Imran Siddiqui said 6 months ago, quote, we don't bomb hospitals. Now the entire Gazan healthcare system looks like this. Again, I think, what was the number? 28 hospitals that have been attacked, and there's like 36 in all of Gaza. All right. Netanyahu directs coalition lawmakers to pass a bill shutting down Al Jazeera broadcast in Israel in Knesset vote on Monday. So, we saw this in Russia. We saw it in Ukraine. Like, whenever something like this is happening, like, everybody immediately snaps into extreme authoritarianism. And they want to control the narrative, control the flow of information, propagandize. And no different at all in Israel. In fact, probably worse. So, Fetterman continues to embarrass himself. He's sharing a Washington Post headline here, accusations of hypocrisy follow U.S. arms transfer to Israel. Fetterman says, no conditions, zero hypocrisy, stand with Israel. I mean, at this point, what do you even say about a guy like Fetterman? He's a massive joke. So I love how APAC Tracker here quote tweeted it and showed the following. Elected in 2022, John Fetterman has already received nearly $250,000 from pro-Israel interest groups. The exact number, $244,100. So does that influence his decision-making? Very likely, yes. By the way, it's also possible that he's just an idiot and wrong on this, but genuinely believes it, and then they give him the money because it's like a chicken or the egg thing, because he's horrible on it and he genuinely believes these things. That's why they give him nearly $250,000. Honestly, it doesn't matter if it's the chicken or the egg, because either way, he's genocidal and wrong and a freak. This is interesting. Israel's Attorney General has said that not only does the Defense Ministry must start drafting Haredi Jews into the IDF and must start doing it tomorrow. Public funds for yeshiva students already ceased 3 days ago. Looks like they are actually finally gunning for this. So in other words, let me put that in layman's terms for you. There's this big fight in Israel right now about whether or not the really hardcore believers, like the ultra-Orthodox extremists, there's a debate about whether or not they should have forced conscription. So in other words, to this point in Israel, they've been exempt. If you're super religious and you want to live that lifestyle, you're exempt from having to serve time in the IDF. Now, everybody else is not exempt, but they were exempt. And so now we're at the point where that's changing. They're cracking down on them and they're saying, no, you got to be like everybody else and your ass has to do conscription as well. Get your ass in the military. And apparently they just dropped the hammer and said, we're starting this like right now. It's no longer a dodge for them to say, hey, I'm super religious, I'm ultra-Orthodox, and that's against my religion, so I'm not doing it. And then beyond that, one of the other things they're doing is all of the subsidies for these super religious schools, they cut off all those subsidies. So this is basically what's happening is the more secular types in Israel are looking at the ultra-Orthodox extremists, and they're going, sorry, but you guys are a bunch of freeloaders. You're having us do all of the heavy lifting for you. You're having us protect you. You're getting government money to sit on your fucking ass all day and read prayers. How about no? How about no? How about you got to contribute just like anybody else? And that's what happened. And so now, honestly, the government is on the brink of falling apart as a direct result of the fight happening here. Because Netanyahu is in a coalition government with other parties, even to his right, and super religious groups. And now it's like, they're butting heads. So it's interesting that in the midst of what they're doing to Gaza, there's also massive internal dissent. And they're sort of falling apart at the seams here. So really interesting. By the way, a lot of these people who are the ultra-Orthodox are kind of like, hey, if you force us to go into the military, we'll leave. We'll leave Israel. To which, everybody else is looking at it throughout the world going, good. Like, get out. It's not your land anyway, right? And a lot of these people are the ones who are on the illegal settlements. They're, are you going to leave? Are you going to leave the illegal settlement? Oh, well, tier. Like, are you kidding? That's what everybody wants. All right, and then finally, we'll end on this one. Today, an active duty Air Force senior airman, Larry Hebert, will begin a hunger strike to highlight the plight of the starving children of Gaza. Now, this guy, Crystal actually met last night because she did an event at Busboys and Poets in Washington, D.C. It was really a Norman Finkelstein event, and she was there to, be a moderator or, ask him the questions. And I think Crystal met this guy and was basically like, look, people were giving her praise for what she does with her show. And she's like, look, I ain't the fucking hero. I'm just doing my job, right? Like, I'm just doing the news and being honest. That's all. The real heroes are like this guy right here. Crystal also met Medea Benjamin from Code Pink as well. Says she's super duper sweet. And she says, again, everybody's giving me praise. She's been on the front lines trying to stop all these illegal and offensive wars all this time. I'm not the hero. They're the heroes. And so, solidarity with this guy, man. This is a active duty Air Force senior airman who's doing a hunger strike, which, by the way, also shows there is tremendous anger, even amidst, the military, the U.S. military, amidst Biden staffers. People who are all looking at this like, this is crazy. I can't believe we've gone this far down this path. This is unacceptable. We have to change course. And it's really bubbling up in a way that I'm not sure I've seen on any other issue ever in this country. So there you have it. There are all your updates. And obviously, I'll continue to give you more. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.